So we've been thinking about, at the very beginning of this whole process, our goal was to develop an intervention that we thought we could get out to people that would help them. And so our goal wasn't just to do a research study, we really wanted to be able to disseminate the work beyond the academic setting. And so we've been thinking about SBIRs and STTRs from the perspective of now that we're in the process of testing and very close to being able to wrap that up, how do we get it out and how do we disseminate it in a way that it's going to be readily available? So we've been starting to think about sort of who would our partners be, and then also what are some of the issues that we need to be thinking about in terms of readiness to actually move into a commercialization phase of the work. Some of the things that have been very interesting about this are some of the questions that you have to ask yourself as a researcher. How do we actually spin this off? If we spin it off, does this become, intellectual property is a major question. So is it my property? Is it the university's property? Do you need to build your own company? What are the issues that go along with that? And as well, I actually am a faculty member, and so I spend the majority of my time thinking about research and studies, and I have a desire to get my product out into the community, but perhaps I'm not the right person to actually move in this commercialization direction. For me, it is clearly it's an interesting place, and I find it to be really refreshing to start to think of these issues, but I also think about it in the context of my other day-to-day things that I do as a researcher, and then that becomes a bit overwhelming. So trying to figure out who are the right partners is one of the major issues that we're sort of grappling with at this point. Being able to not only be exposed to individuals who do this, but then also to be able to really clarify, am I an academic? And is that how I want to spend my time? Or do I really want to become a business entrepreneur and move into a new field, which might require another degree, particularly in business, and would require moving into a whole nother area of expertise? So the question of how do you actually juggle the demands as an academic versus the demands of actually trying to commercialize and move a product out into the market. It's as I think through this, I really had to sort of do some values clarification. And so part of what I was fortunate to be exposed to in the two programs is to sort of understanding what are some of the key things you need to think about. So some of the key things early on in our process were making sure that you copyright. So there are basic things that, as an academic, I am a sociologist, so we didn't talk about technology transfer in terms of graduate school. That was not something that we were prepared for, and so we were prepped to write papers, write books, collect data, talk to individuals. But in terms of thinking about commercialization and moving interventions out into the field, that wasn't something that we really focused on. And so part of my decision process around this has really been, how do I like to spend my time, and what are some of the pushes and pulls in terms of my actual academic career. Yes, so we, initially looked at SBIRs and STTRs, and I think our group is much more suited to being sort of the resource behind rather than being the technology lead. And it's really because, again, our focus has been on the research and designing something that's been useful and of interest to patients. I think our expertise in our natural area that we feel most comfortable in is really in the advisor space and not in the moving it forward, building a business, and doing all of those other pieces. So it's been daunting looking at both the SBIR and the STTR mechanisms because while we have the product and we have the expertise and the ability to get there, it is clearly not a straight path for us in the ways that other research grants are.